If I had asked who is the most boring and bland character of the new cast at the beginning of part 2, most people would have answered Helia. And in a way, she was. While Coralie managed to establish herself as a well-liked character due to her quirky personality and the Demon Lord memes, Helia always struggled to stand out due to her uptight personality, with the exception of the scenes where HoYo threw in some fan service. But that is no more the case. I always said, let HoYo cook. It was clear that the purpose of the first story arc in part 2 was to introduce this new world and the 7 Shus, focusing mostly on Songque. But because of that, the main cast always felt like it was left behind. The writers cannot offer a big character moment or arc to everybody from the get-go, so they have to choose to focus on different characters in different moments of time. But it was only a matter of time until the other characters would get their moment in the spotlight. From the character that people were most indifferent towards, Helia managed to become one of the most loved characters in part 2, up there with Little Che. That is why today I, HoMudebs, will explain everything that happened in the recent chapters regarding Helia, Revenge Spirit, and how she got this new badass battlesuit. So let us waste no time and get into the story of the biggest Coralie simp. Okay, but before that, let me briefly summarize what the actual happened in the story to facilitate her moment. After clearing the threat posed by the Curse of Shadows in Langche, we went back 100 years in time to a period before the Great Eruption, when Osha and Langche were not separated and the 7 Shus did not exist yet. As an organization, they were still alive as individuals. During this time, we learn about a competition hosted by Mr. Toast every couple of years called the 10 Shus War. In order to take part in this competition and be crowned as God's Knight, aka a Shadow Knight, participants must acquire a jade plaque which allows them access to Ruimu to take part in the actual tournament. Ruimu, also called the City of Eternal Night, is a sacred city where the god of Mars is said to live inside a gigantic tower. As we progress through the story, we learn about the history of Mars and the true origin of the Shadow Calamity. Senadina, Naha, and Litost are aliens who come from a distant planet to Mars. Senadina ended up becoming the god of Mars, and she took in a girl named Layla to prepare her to succeed as a god in her stead. After Senadina's sudden departure, Layla is left grieving. Letost, who was previously Senadina's knight, wants Layla to move on and embrace a new era, but he's aware that him remaining by her side will always remind her of Senadina. So he decides to hold the 10 Shus War to find a suitable candidate to become Layla's new knight, leaving him room to exit the stage and propel Luoxing into a new era. Unfortunately, Layla takes Litost's actions as a form of betrayal and refuses to acknowledge anybody as her knight among the winners of the 10 Shus War. Not only that, we also learn that the reason why the Curse of Shadows exists in the first place was because of Layla's anger at Litost's betrayal. Fast forward many years, we are now amidst the 33rd 10 Shus War. Dreamseeker, Helia and Coralie managed to secure themselves the necessary jade plagues to gain access to Ruimu. Since the stakes are high and Randall also joined on the mission, Helia puts a lot of pressure on herself to get the job done and prove herself as a Valkyrie. She has a lot of insecurities due to her mediocre talent and poor Honkai adaptability. All her life she compared herself to people like Durandal, believing that she will never be able to reach the level of the prodigies. Due to her insecurities, Helia lashes out at Coralie and they end up in an argument. After much self-reflection and also with Dreamseeker and Coralie's help, Helia manages to accept her shortcomings and move forward. Unfortunately, tragedy struck. While confronting Letost, Coralie's body gets pierced by one of his swords while trying to save Helia. Even though everything that happens in the quantum computer shouldn't affect their real bodies, after all, they died multiple times in the previous samsara and they were fine in reality, Coralie's body seemed to have taken damage in real life. We later see Ajita theorizing that Litost might have a special authority that he kept secret during the real history and nobody knew about, which was able to transcend the limitations of the quantum computer and affect Coralie in real life. Later, we see that Litost was aware that Coralie and Helia were not from Mars and used this power to kill Coralie because he wanted Durandal to chase after him. After a prior altercation, Litost deemed Durandal as someone worthy to succeed him as a Shadow Knight. Unfortunately, this pushes Helia over the edge as she gets consumed by grief and falls into the clutches of revenge. While everything was happening, another entity that we later learn is a Helia from a different world was observing and manipulating the events from the shadows. This Helia, who am I going to refer to as Revenge Spirit, observed the events that were happening in this world and manipulated Helia so that Coralie would die and Helia would descend onto a path of grief and revenge. After Coralie's death, Revenge Spirit shows herself before Helia and offers to give her power to take revenge on Litost in exchange for different aspects of Helia. First time she gets her blood for a part of her powers, then her eyes for the ability to see things clearly and never miss a shot, and lastly her heart and emotions, which only serve as a liability. As Litost pointed out, Helia was becoming more of a machine than a human. Unfortunately, even after all of these sacrifices, Helia was unable to beat Litost. What a loser, am I right? But all these deals weren't just a means for Helia to gain power, no. They were a ploy by Revenge Spirit to manifest into this world and kill Helia. In the beginning, Revenge Spirit could just observe, but as Helia struck these deals with her, it allowed her to fully manifest into this world. Revenge Spirit had a grudge against Helia because she hated how weak she was, a naive girl who boasts about saving everyone yet falls flat on her resolve, which ended up in Coralie's death. In order to understand Revenge Spirit's motives, we need to look at her past. Maybe the biggest question when it comes to Revenge Spirit is, where does she come from? Is she from a simulated world of the quantum computer or from a different bubble world / branch of the imaginary tree? And while the game doesn't really go into many details, it is heavily implied that she is from a world simulated by the Martian quantum computer. But first, let me make one thing clear. Ajita mentions that just by entering the quantum computer, the computer can simulate other worlds based on you. This is also something that Dreamseeker and Durandal talk about in chapter 7. Just by entering the simulation, the computer managed to simulate many worlds based on people from Earth. When we look at Revenge Spirit's world, it's clearly a weird amalgamation of Mars and Earth history. For example, the disasters in Revenge Spirit's world are called calamities, same as the Shadow Calamity on Mars. We learn from the texts left behind by the Rita from Revenge Spirit's world that this was a world facing destruction by battling these calamities. These disasters varied in form, power, and pretty much wiped out life in Revenge Spirit's world. We also learn that there is no Kiana in that world, which is the reason why it was doomed to perish. Now, keep in mind that this is not 100% certain. There is also some sussy-wussy dialogue between Helia and Revenge Spirit that implies that because of the quantum computer, the time and space of the two Helias intersected, and that's how Revenge Spirit found her, implying that this is not a simulation. But most of things imply that her world is created by the computer. But I want to emphasize that we don't really have a 100% for sure answer yet, and we don't really know if these are true simulations like Elysian Realm, for example, because we don't really know how the Martian quantum computer functions, honestly. There's so many hints implying that it uses the Sea of Quanta in a way to create these worlds, so maybe they are not really simulations but actual bubble worlds using the data that the computer has, and all these people are actually Star Whisperers. There's so many mysteries, but that is a topic for another video. The idea is that we don't know for certain, but for now let's go with the idea that she is from a world simulated by the computer. Just like in our world, Helia is a soldier for Schicksal, or New Schicksal, how it's called here. Coralie is a super soldier that was experimented on, having her genes mixed with that of the pollutants from the calamity in order to enhance her power. That's the reason why she's a Dagao in that world, while in ours she just has Honkai genes. The relationship is pretty similar to the one in the world we know. They start in a pretty rocky way and are tsundere to each other, but slowly get closer as they interact and get to know each other. In both worlds, Helia has the same issue. She's faced with many doubts and self-esteem issues, while having great admiration for Coralie, whom she considers a genius. On the other side, both Coralies are cynical, lazy, and very smart, admiring Helia's hardworking nature and simple attitude towards her goals. At the same time, both Coralies have an innate fear of death, but end up sacrificing themselves for their respective Helia. Our Coralie saves Helia from Litos's attack, while the other Coralie distracts the pollutants from the calamity so that Revenge Spirit can get away from the battlefield and leave. After Revenge Spirit learns the truth about what happened with her Coralie, she goes down on the path of revenge. Not only on the world and the people who forced her partner into that position, but also on herself. You see, the person that Revenge Spirit hates the most is her weak, ugly past self, whose lack of strength and resolve ended up killing Coralie. After she undergoes Project 401, which is a project meant to create the ultimate soldier by donning a battlesuit that literally transcends time and space and tests the wearer's resolve across multiple timelines, she gets reborn as Revenge Spirit and marches on a crusade to kill everybody in her world and every weak Helia that she can find in other worlds. Helia couldn't save Coralie. This is fate's curse, a nightmare from which there is no awakening. The conflict between the two Helias came down to a difference in ideology. For Revenge Spirit, her past weakness is a sin that she cannot forgive herself for. The pathetic, ugly, and powerless side of Helia brought Coralie's demise. Helia is nothing more than an arrogant fool who thinks she can be a hero despite being weak. She knows that she is average, yet she is arrogant. She should just die. Through her story, we see Revenge Spirit trying her best to detach herself from the identity of Helia. That's why she undergoes Project 401, discards her humanity and dons a mask while wearing her battlesuit. She doesn't want to be Helia anymore, so she hides her face. Helia is a weak, arrogant fool, but she's not Helia anymore. She's a spirit of revenge born from the experiment. Her resolve transcended the name Helia and was reborn through the fires of revenge into a new existence. An existence who is set on reading the words of herself. Whoa, slow there, Archer. Are we sure that HoYo didn't collab with the wrong Honkai game? On the other side, our Helia is the total opposite. She accepted the fact that she is weak and arrogant and embraced her identity fully. She didn't abandon her humanity and her ideals as a Valkyrie. She also acknowledges that she is a hypocrite. She knows very well that she's weak, but she still wants to be a hero. She knows that people are not perfect, but she still wants to help them. Why? Because that's what Coralie would have wanted. She sacrificed herself in every timeline so that Helia can continue to live. For Coralie, the naive, weak and arrogant Helia was someone who she deeply cared about and did not hesitate to throw away her life for. So, by giving away her humanity, wouldn't Revenge Spirit do the biggest disservice to Coralie's sacrifice? Even after everything that she did, Revenge Spirit never managed to break her. Helia did not falter. Her doubts, her resolve, and even Coralie's death were orchestrated by Revenge Spirit so that Helia would break. You know what they say, in order to truly break someone, you need to build them up first. Because Revenge Spirit knew that Helia's actions would cause Coralie's death, she made sure that Helia will march forward and steal her resolve in Chapter 6 against Litos, anticipating that Coralie would die in the process. After the inevitable happened, she reached out offering power. She didn't want to just simply kill off Helia. For her, this was a battle of ideologies. She wanted to make sure that Helia understood that her pathetic self is the reason why Coralie died, and only by embracing the fire of revenge she can break the shackle of her own fate. But despite that, even after giving away her humanity, inside God's tower, Helia chose to continue helping people. The path of a Valkyrie was the only one she could walk. This made Revenge Spirit even madder. She then trapped Helia in her memories, forcing her to witness her memories. She wanted to make sure that Helia will never escape her torment. But Helia was the one whose resolve emerged victorious in the end. Revenge Spirit always had an idealized version of Coralie in her mind. For her, Coralie was also a genius, someone much better than she could ever be. But this idealized image was also the thing that kept her from seeing the truth behind Coralie's actions, something that our Helia managed to see. Coralie was a kind girl who, despite being afraid of death, didn't hesitate to lay down her life. She was a fool, just like her. She was far from perfect. We can see that Revenge Spirit forgot a lot of things about Coralie, and was even surprised by her attitude while looking at Helia's memories. In the end, she did not understand Coralie and her sacrifice. She only used her as an excuse to run away and become a new calamity. But deep down, she always knew. That is why she didn't bother going back to look for Coralie's game console or read her notes, because she knew that this wasn't what Coralie would want. In the end, Revenge Spirit's conviction wavers and our Helia emerges victorious. She continues to move forward and challenges Lithos to a fight despite knowing very well the hubris of her weakness. While fighting Lithos, she inherits the battlesuit from Revenge Spirit. Keep in mind that the condition to wear that battlesuit is for your resolve to not waver across multiple timelines. And because she managed to prove her resolve by facing Revenge Spirit, who was the previous owner, she was able to inherit the battlesuit. But there are some differences. First of all, Helia doesn't wear a mask because, well, she doesn't need to. Revenge Spirit hated Helia. She tried to hide herself, but Helia accepted her own weakness. She's Helia and she's proud of that, so she doesn't need a mask to hide her face anymore. And while Revenge Spirit used fire, symbolizing her path for revenge, Helia uses lightning, symbolizing her resolve as a Valkyrie, since that is the element of her previous battlesuit. Also, Revenge Spirit used a gun, symbolizing cowardice, while Helia uses blades to fight the enemy head-on like a true Valkyrie. This battlesuit is Helia's idealized version of what a Valkyrie should be. That's why we even see attacks from Durandal incorporated in it, because she admires her. After killing the Crazy Toast, as Ajita theorized, his authority fades and Coralie wakes up. I think that this is a perfect way to symbolize the resolution of Helia's journey. Keep in mind that Revenge Spirit believed that Coralie will always die because of Helia's weakness and foolishness. For her, this was an universal truth across multiple worlds. No matter what, Coralie will always end up dead. But this time Helia's foolishness managed to break the chain of fate and bring back Coralie, proving Revenge Spirit once and for all that her path was wrong. Now, it seems that the story will be shifting onto Coralie's POV. We see her in a new area related to Naha, and by the looks of the 8.3 PV, it seems that we will tackle her character next with the idea of death that she was so afraid of in chapter 6. This was an amazing story arc for Helia, from one of the most flat and uninteresting characters of part 2 to one of the coolest and well-written characters in the entire game. If this is not a Bronya moment, I don't know what it is.